Hello everyone and welcome to the CEM homework review video for Block 3, Week 5, and this is verbal reasoning. We are going to go over analogies this week, and this was in your Cheat Sheet Right vocabulary book on pages 30 to 35. Now, the thing with analogies is this is about the relationship between two. Being able to recognize an analogy relies on being able to compare one thing with another. The word analogy actually means similarity, and this question type usually involves a good general knowledge of word meanings and making logical links between words. So, practice exercise first of all are some incomplete analogies. Can you place a word at the end of each analogy to help it make a sensible sentence? And if you didn't fill this part in for your homework, why not pause the video now and just have a go? What is the relationship between the two things? And let's check the answers. So cat is to kitten as dog is to puppy. It's comparing the grown-up animals with the baby animals. Architect is to drawings as author is to writing. Now, you might not know what an architect is, but the clue is given to you. It is somebody who draws, and an architect draws plans for buildings. If you didn't know what an architect means, you should have enough information there to help you fill in the rest of the sentence. So we know that an author writes books. So an architect is to drawings as author is to writing. And where you aren't sure of any word meanings, this is where you can look it up in a dictionary and write it down in your word and meaning book. We cannot keep stressing enough the importance of using your vocabulary books. This is so key to help you learn new vocabulary and use it not only in your independent work, but of course in the test papers that you complete as well. Emerald is to green as ruby is to red. So emerald and ruby are types of precious jewels, but they are green and red colours respectively. Radius is to arm as fibula is to leg. So you may not have known these bone names, but again, you could have looked it up in a dictionary if you weren't sure. Loop is to pool as keep is to peak. With this one, the words have been reversed. So loop and pool have exactly the same letters in, but the word has just been switched around. And keep and peak has done the same thing. And to peek means to look through something, to peep. Loathe is to hate, as adore is to love. What's really most important in these question types is that the link between the second pair of words must be the same as the link in the first pair. So it's useful to consider how the words might be related. And there are a number of ways in which words can be connected. It could be down to word and sentence structure in terms of synonyms, antonyms, homophones. So it could be grammatical, or it could be about what the words mean. Jobs, colours, cities. It could be backward spellings, like with the loop and pool and keep and peak example that we just looked at. It could be parts of the body. And sometimes the link will be very obvious. But other times you might need to consider the word meanings before the link becomes evident. And saying the completed analogy in your mind will help to reinforce the correct answer. So if we look at an example together, great is to one of those three options, as peel is to one of those three options. So first things first is to read the words in the analogy and think about the link between the first pair. In the above example, The words great and great are homophones, and that means they sound exactly the same. They are spelt differently, but they still sound exactly the same. Now, if this link is spotted quickly, it can then be applied to the second pair of words. But let's just take a step back first of all. Great is to, you might think great is to cheese because you grate cheese using a grater. Once you've found the first pair of words, you need to decide which word will make the same link between the second pair of words. Okay, so we are here. Oh, we are at point 2 now. So you establish a connection between the first pair of words. If you thought it was great is to cheese, then you need to see if the same connection works for the second pair. As peel is to, so, well, there's nothing there that you can peel, but you could use a knife. So you might think it's peeling. However, this is where it's really important to have that word knowledge. Peel, P-E-A-L, is not to do with peeling vegetables or cooking. When bells peal, they ring with a loud sound. Peel is a homophone. P-E-E-L means to peel vegetables and things. So we can't make the same connection between these two parts of the analogy because it's simply not there. So we can eliminate what we know is not right. But had you recognised that great and great are homophones, as are peel and peel, you might start to figure out a connection. Ruling out words and eliminating them can help limit your choices, exactly as I've started to do here. And double check that the analogy makes sense and there is verb agreement. So the sentence has to read properly and make sense. The answer is great and peel because they are homophones. So great is to great as peel is to peel. Okay, hopefully that makes some sense to you. You then had your practice develop section where you were underlining one word from each set of brackets to best complete the analogy. And we had this one at the start in our practice section. Kitten is to cat as puppy is to dog. So comparing the grown-up and baby versions of each animal. Paper is to book as glass is to window. Water is to liquid as ice is to solid. So you're thinking now about the consistency of the materials, the properties. Train is to rails as car is to road. This is referring to what each vehicle travels on. And dance is to feet as clap is to hands. We use our feet and our hands. Then we have truth is to honesty as lying is to deceit. You may possibly have chosen distrust, but make sure if you're not sure of the meaning of a word, you check it in the dictionary because deceit is the accurate word to use here, which means you're not being truthful. It is an antonym for honesty. Happiness is to smile as anger is to frown. Shoe is to laces as trousers are to belt. Sight is to eyes as hearing is to ears. That should be a nice straightforward one for you. And sweet is to sugar as savoury is to salt. So referring to taste. Now we had the time section, which was 15 minutes. We would like you to try and practice completing the activities in the given time, but don't worry if it takes you longer at this stage. Try to note down how long it does take you so you have an indication of where you are in terms of pacing. It's something that we will be focusing on more in later blocks, but it's good to practice and have an understanding at this stage. Underline one word from each set of brackets to best complete the analogy. So narrow is to, confined as wide is to spacious. So it's talking about the physical attributes of those words. Confined and spacious. They are antonyms. Vacate is to empty as occupy is to fill. So vacate can be another word for leave, a synonym. Jovial is to cheerful as gloomy is to despondent. Renowned is famous. And obscure is unknown, not infamous. Infamous means you are well known, famous, but not for a good reason. So infamous is not an antonym for famous. Obscure means unknown. Porous is to sponge as waterproof is to rubber. So porous is a good word for your word and meaning bits. Means that liquids can come through, can permeate the sponge. Forego is to deny, as indulge is to binge. So this might have been a bit of a tricky one. And deny in this context means is a synonym to forego something. So somebody might say, I will forego dessert because I have had enough, rather than indulge and by binging on lots of food that they don't need. So that's just one example of how those words can be used together. One is to sick, as glowing is to healthy. Again, what this word one is a word for your word and meaning books. Do look these up further in a dictionary to give you a better indication of their meanings. And then try to write them in your own words when you write them in your word and meaning book, because that will help you remember them more. Denial is to contradiction, as agreement is to confirmation. So a contradiction is the opposite of something, and agreement confirms a belief or viewpoint. Barren is to unproductive, as fertile is to fruitful. Barren land you might hear of. Plants won't grow there because it's barren, it's dry. It's the opposite of fertile land. Irritation is to annoy, as appreciation is to value. If you appreciate something or somebody, you value, you treasure it. Novice is to expert, as freshman is to graduate. Now, these are interesting terms that you might not have heard of. They are opposite things to each other. So a novice means you are new and beginning something, maybe a skill, whereas if you are an expert, you have already learned that skill. So that's a relationship between novice and expert. And then with the second pair of words, the relationship between them is the same. We can't use expert because we've used it already. We can't use professional because we're not talking in general terms, but we're talking in collegiate terms. So a freshman, and this is used in America, possibly other places, but definitely in the American school and college system. Freshman is beginning their educational journey, and a graduate has finished their educational journey. So when they start high school or college, they are called a freshman and it's their freshman year. When they finish high school or college, they have graduated. Cherry is to stone as apple is to pip. Talking about the stone and the seeds inside each fruit. Noble is to wealth as humble is to poverty. This is comparing nobility to being wealthy and being poor to being humble and appreciative of what you have. Chick is to cheap as duck is to quack, referring to the sounds the animals make. And spontaneous is impromptu as prepared is rehearsed. These are synonyms. Spontaneous and impromptu mean that you've done something quickly without much thought, which is the opposite of being prepared and rehearsed. And spontaneous doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It just means it's not been worked on or considered for a long time. Snout is to boar as trunk is to elephant. Strange is to bizarre as familiar is to ordinary. So these words are synonyms for each other. Rabbit is to hare as wallaby is to kangaroo. So smaller versions, similar in terms of their characteristics and animal qualities. Foot is to ankle as hand is to wrist. So the joint that the extremities rest on. Gallop is to horse as slither is to snake. Elva is to eel as Joey is to possum. This is a general knowledge one. A Joey, you might know, is a baby possum, also a baby kangaroo, which is perhaps more common that you might hear of. Therefore, an elva must be a baby eel. 5 is to 25 as 2 is to 4. Thinking on a maths strand. 5 goes into 25 and 2 goes into 4. Minor is to coal, as brewer is to beer. A miner mines coal, a brewer brews beer. Portrait is to painter, as statue is to sculptor, not builder. War is to roar, as smart is to trams. This is another reversal of the letters in the word. So war becomes roar and smart becomes trams when read the other way. Composer is to music, as philosopher is to ideas. A composer creates music. A philosopher thinks of ideas. 48 is to 8, as 24 is to 4. Again, what numbers go into each other. Nits is to stink, as straw is to warts. Again, this is a reversal of the letters in the word. Deer is to fawn, as pigeon is to squab. The baby versus the adult animals. And astronomer is to space, as meteorologist is to weather. So in these professions, an astronomer is all about space, and a meteorologist studies the weather. All right then, guys, hope that has helped you and made some things clearer. Please do use those word and meaning books as much as possible and learn the words that you put in there as well. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.